Well, welcome to the Sean Newman podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Jason Mckee. So thanks for joining me.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I guess when I look at your career, there's a lot of things that stick out, but I thought we'd start way back at the beginning. Being born and raised in Irma, Alberta, I thought maybe we could just start from there. Irma's got a pretty solid history of hockey players, ball players, just sports in general. Maybe you could talk us through a little bit of growing up there.
Yeah, it's a small town, about 500 people, and there wasn't a lot else to do other than sports. I think that was kind of when you're growing up. You had your winter sports, your summer sports, your spring sports, all 4 seasons. So that's kind of what we did. And there's been a tremendous amount of athletes come out of the area and in a variety of different sports, but specifically hockey for sure. There's been especially lately, there's been some young guys come out of there and reach the National Hockey League, American League, college hockey, Western League. There's Junior A. There's a numerous amounts of people here in the last probably decade that have had a lot of success coming out of that town. So it's great to see, and as a former, that's my hometown. It's definitely fantastic to see some of the guys that I grew up with, now having kids and seeing their kids have success too. So it's been fantastic.
What do you think it is? Is it the water? Is it the protein?
Something in the water, yeah. Like my team, the Oilers, yeah. But no, it's what I just think it's just opportunity. I think the facilities they have for a small town are tremendous. The commitment from the community, the adults, the volunteers, the time that goes into it when these kids are young. I truly believe that's a huge part of it, is just that commitment and first rate facilities for the size of it, like I said. So it gives everybody a tremendous start, and then obviously as you get to higher levels, you're going to have to travel a little bit more, but I think at the grassroots they do a great job in all aspects.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They even in, what is it, June, they have the month a month where they bring the ice back in Irma. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
not this year with everything going on, but
Yeah, the last few years they've done that. It's been great. I just think it just in that area now, not just Irma, but the surrounding area. There's a lot of athletes, especially particular hockey players, and it's a viable option now because there are so many players that are training and playing at higher levels, like I said. So it's fantastic for the team, or for the town, and it gives those guys they don't have to go as far away to try and get training. They got ice there right now, and there's a lot of talented trainers in that area as well now in regards to on ice and off ice as well.
yeah, we get to see a bunch of those kids now here specifically in Lloyd, and on the show we've had a bunch of them come on and had some of the trainers come on, and I mean it's pretty cool just to see. Well, once again, like a little tiny town, like you say, produce so much, and that area and this area in general, just how much talent has come, wealth of talent has come out of here. I mean, you've got to see a lot of it when Spruce Grove. You had so many of them come through your program there. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a good pipeline for me. I think having history in Lloydminster and then having history in Irma as well. There's been a lot of athletes, so I think in the recruiting process that definitely helped. And like I said, I think that area has always been a good spot for developing players. But recently, like I said, in the last decade, it's been a lot of players are coming through there, and you follow along the best you can. But in regards to Spruce Grove, it was fantastic because you got the support not too far away. Some players have to travel a long way to play junior, so it wasn't too bad for them that way. And a lot of those kids were real fabric guys for us in our culture that we had in Spruce Grove.
Well, let's rewind the clock to 1994, if you can go that far back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
How old were you at that age when you moved to Lloyd to play for the Blazers?
Yeah, so I kind of how it started is I ended up moving my last year of Pee Wee. So I played a year of Pee Wee AA there at the time, and I played some summer hockey when back in the day there was only one or two teams in summer hockey, so it was. That was kind of where, I realized that, you want to play against the best players. Sometimes you're going to have to move away. And it was tough at that age, but started there. So I played a year, of Pee Wee there, and then 1 year of Bantam. And then we had a really good team in that area. And then I was fortunate to make Junior A as a 15-year-old in Lloyd. And, that first year was, people that followed the team back then, that was, probably our best known player at the time would have been the Andrew Hannas of the world. He was our leading scorer. So, we were able to get in there our first year, and we ended up losing the first round. But for me as a young guy, it was a tremendous experience. It was looking back, you always wonder, were you too young? But I learned a lot, had a lot of fun, and if I had to do it over again, I would. So it was a fantastic year.
When you go back to that time, obviously, I can't remember when the Bantam draft comes in. Was the Bantam draft going by then? Was it 89 that it came in?
Yeah. I was, I think, a fourth round pick to Red Deer. So I definitely had some tough decisions to make. And, you just, at the time, I felt like it was probably the right call for me to give me a little bit more time to develop in my game. And, it's funny. I'm one of those players. There's a few of them that are in my playing time that did the college and came back and played major junior. So I've done both routes, and I've coached in both leagues. I played in both leagues. So it's, I tell everyone the same thing. It's both are fantastic routes. Both are great leagues. You just kind of got to pick what's best for you at the time, what you think is going to be, most beneficial in regards to your career and education as well. And some guys, it's a better fit one way, and some ways it's a better fit the other. So it's always a player's choice. And what I say is, if your brother went one way, or your cousin, or your friend, it doesn't mean that that's got to be the way for you. And you got to do what's best for you in your career. And I think that's probably the best advice I can give any young players in making those decisions.
What was it for you then that led you to the Junior A? Being drafted by Red Deer, I'm sure that had to have been appetizing back then. What stuck out to you about the Junior A?
Yeah, it was, I think it was a situation where I was comfortable there. I'd put in a couple of years before that. So I was already in school there. I was a young guy still, 15, 16, still, working your way through high school. So definitely had had a good fit there for me. It was a good fit in Lloyd at the time. And the school side was good. And for me, it was important at that time. I was a pretty good student. So, it was just, a thing where at the time that was the best thing for me, and also opportunity. I think, in Lloyd, I was, going into my 16, 17-year-old years, it was, a pretty featured guy, which, every player wants to play. So, and the combination of those things, I think ultimately is, the decision I made at the time. But, like I said, I ended up coming back and then playing as a 20 in the league, and, both are fantastic. I've got, great memories from both sides.
Well, how about your final year in junior, or Junior A, that is, before you go to the NCAA? You put up 28 goals, 50 assists, and 78 points for the team lead. That's pretty decent for a D-man, if you ask me.
Yeah, so it's funny. Yeah, I played a little bit of forward and defense, but at that time I was predominantly, mostly forward. So I put up, pretty good numbers. We played the point on the power play. So anytime you get that opportunity to kind of play in those roles, that your numbers, if you're doing a good job, you should put up some decent numbers. So I was, like I said, that was a big part of, the reason and decision, was just getting that opportunity to play those crucial minutes. So I was, like I said, I played a lot of forward, but on special teams, for whatever reason, on the power play, even growing up, I played a lot on the point. So, and then I went to college and was predominantly a forward, and then kind of transitioned, to more of a little bit more defense by last year at junior. Just by default, we had a couple of guys away at World Juniors and injuries, and we were down to 3 defensemen. So, they asked anybody if they'd ever done it before, and I said, yeah, a little bit. I said, on special teams. So away I went, and we went on probably a real good stretch there over Christmas. And it's crazy. My first full month of playing, I think, if I remember correctly, I got defenseman of the month in the league. So it was a strange thing. It was good for me for my career, because I was able to do both and play both. But sometimes things just happen out of necessity, and it was good. I thought I helped our team more that year and back there, and we were able to add a real good forward in Alan Manis at the deadline and make our team stronger. So, at the time, it was probably best for me and the team, and that's kind of why we did it. But it wasn't by design; it was more by accident.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that, but that's
Yeah. It's different. Yeah, no, it's I got a little bit some unique stories for sure. It's starting as a forward, finishing as a D, flip-flopping, and like I said, playing in both leagues, coaching in both leagues. So it's been good. It's given me great perspective on a lot of different things.
What position do you prefer?
You know what? I like both. I think for me, I felt like I was able to control the game more on the back end. Just being in those spots, having the puck. That being said, it's a lot different when you're checking, when you're chasing a guy as a forward rather than coming at you full speed. And there's some good players, obviously. So it was definitely a mindset transition for sure. But most coaches said I tended to probably affect the game, from the back end a little bit more. But that being said, I enjoyed my time up front too. I love the whole pursuit, the hunt of the puck. Everybody likes to score. So it's, at the time it was just whatever I needed to do to help the group. And to answer your question, I'm not sure. I think I'd probably pick D, but it's just so much fun to play.
A shout out to Quinn McIntosh, my defense partner, my second year junior. He was a guy who was converted from forward to D, and he was a hell of a lot of fun to play with because he just moved differently than any D man I'd ever played with, and saw the game differently than a standard D man would.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what coaches told me. I was, I had the ability to kind of know where guys were before I was coming back to get pucks. I kind of knew where guys were, and had the confidence to make the small area plays, little pop plays in front of the net to your center, just little things like that. And I attribute that just to from playing forward and having the confidence to make those small area plays in your own end instead of the other end. So, like a lot of coaches say, the best defense is breaking pucks out where you're not spending time there. So, I think that's what I was able to do. I wasn't the biggest guy at the time, and the rules were obviously different back then. And, I had to kind of use my brains, my smarts, my anticipation to help me in those areas for sure. And the less battling I had to do down low, I didn't want to give my size or disadvantage away a little bit. So I knew that if I could get back to pucks and move them quickly, that was in my best interest for sure.
Who was coaching the Blazers back when you were here?
Yeah, I had a few. My first year I had Gord Skeen, who coached me in minor hockey, and then I had Boris Rybalka. I think he got his start there. I'm not sure if it was his first junior. I think it was. So he was there. He was obviously now in Camrose. And then after that, on my last year, I had Gord Thibodeau. So some guys that have been around a while now. So, but they were younger back then as I was. But some pretty good coaches.
Seeing so many different looks from the back end or the bench, I bet you take a little bit of some of that from what you've learned from a player to being now standing there yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a couple key things that for me that allowed me to gain confidence as a coach, especially as a younger coach, was being able to play both positions. Practicing them both, learning from coaches, drill specific things, detail habits for both positions. I think that helped me a lot. And then, playing for good coaches as well. I learned different things from different coaches as player and as a coach. And I think you got to be your own person. You can't try to be someone you're not, but I always believe you can take certain parts from, successful coaches, and whether it's hockey or other sports, and try to steal a few things from them and mold them into kind of, your way of doing it. But I don't think you can fake anything. I think you got to be real of who you are, and the players will pick up on that. But I've been very fortunate to play and work with some great people, and you'll probably hear that a lot in the hockey world. But I'd be no different. I think I'd be foolish not to think that I wouldn't be had some of the success I had without great players, but great people around me to help me for sure.
You mentioned Gord Thibodeau coached you. He was I had him on probably a few months ago now, but he's the all-time winningest coach in the AJ. And we talked about his time in Lloyd and how he got to Lloyd. What was his stint over coaching you like, having a guy like Gord here?
So I think the one thing I learned from Gord and what he brought in that year, he kind of came in about halfway through, if I remember correctly, and we weren't doing well, and we were a long shot to get in, and when it was all said and done, I think we fell 2 points short, and he brought us a long ways back from pretty much being out of it. And the one thing that I learned from him is, as a coach now, is just the importance of work ethic as a group. I think we had players that worked hard, but as a group, I didn't think we, looking back, probably worked as hard as we need to as a group. And when he came in, he demanded that from all the players. And I think when all the players started to buy into that, our practice habits, our intensity, everything just went up. And there was competition in the practice. It wasn't, those are things that he brought in, and a real professional approach about how we were going to do things. And guys started to buy in, and guys started to see it, and we started to get the results. And I think that was my, from a young player, moving forward, that would be one thing that I took away from Gord, is just the importance of work ethic, not just amongst a few guys, but your whole group, especially coaching. There has to be a standard. And if you reach that standard, good things are going to happen. So he was a great tactician, nothing, simple but effective, but it was all about one-on-one battles and winning those hard areas of the ice.
When you say demand, you had a coach for part of the year where it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And then you had another guy come in. And when you say demand, how did he earn that? Because I think we've all probably had a coach who's come in and tried to demand things, and it hasn't gone over that well. What was it about Gord that made that work?
I think he was well organized. I think he came in and he had a plan every day of what he wanted to do. And we could see that there was a reason behind what we were doing. He had a philosophy of why we were doing it that day, and whatever we were trying to achieve in practice that day, you could tell right away what he was trying to do. And he was a good teacher at it, and the drills that he used allowed us to show us where we needed to be in certain spots in the ice. And then just the whole competitive nature and the practice itself, I think, our mindset just changed a little bit. And he just forced us to do things in a different way than maybe we were doing it before. And there was no gray area. There was, guys would wear certain types of helmets in practice that, probably weren't certified for games. And he came in and he changed that, like everybody's going to practice like they play. And I'll never forget that. And I think it was just a culture thing where, his demands, his expectations were high. And if you didn't meet them, it didn't matter who you were. He ultimately controlled the ice time, but, Gord's, back then he was hard on guys, sure. But if you played hard for him, he played you lots. So I always appreciated that about Gord, and learned a lot from him. And he's a guy, especially early when I was starting out in the league, that always had a lot of admiration for, and still do. But as a player, that was something that looking back now and being in the coaching profession, that wouldn't have been an easy situation to come into. And he did a fabulous job of getting it turned around.
I like how you say there were players not wearing certified helmets.
Yeah.
I think we all remember those helmets that's interesting. Demanding out of a practice. We've all heard the line, you practice like you play, or, you need to show that work ethic in the practice for it to spill over into a game. And sometimes you kind of forget that, or players can forget that. I know I certainly can.
Yeah, no, it's, I think when you surround yourself with like-minded players, or your culture has a set establishment of how it's going to be, and there's no negotiation on it, you're only going to get better. And I think that's I always tell players, especially recruiting in Junior A, is, everybody says they want to win, but, how are you going to win? What are you going to do to win? It's easy to use those words, but, it takes its toll, and it's a demand. And, you should never fear, playing with good players. The more good players I could bring in as general manager, I still believe it today, is that you're practicing against the best, you're playing with the best. There's no better model to get better. So I'm a big believer in that. And, practice is such an important key, because it gives you confidence going into the game, because you've done it the right way. And like anything in life, if you've done it before and you feel good about something, the results will take care of itself. You
like being the GM and coach?
Yeah, I think I do. I think there's definitely benefits to it. In the recruiting side, if the GM likes you, the coach likes you, right? I think it's that one guy, whereas in some situations it can occur where the GM may have different thoughts than maybe the coach. But, for the most part, in this situation, when I'm recruiting players, I think it gives them confidence to know that I wear both hats. And if I like them as a general manager, I like them as a coach, that's a good thing. There's a lot of different hats that you have to wear doing both jobs. It's very busy. It's demanding. It's a 12 month job. I tell people the only time my phone probably doesn't ring is Christmas Day, and other than that, there's always something going on. Junior hockey is a big business, and there's a lot of moving parts that maybe the average person wouldn't know about, especially behind the scenes. It's not just what you see on the ice or in the rink. There's a lot of other things happening. So I'm always involved in all of that, and you want to make sure every part of their day is full and every part of their day is productive. And at the end of the day, parents are trusting me to do those things with their sons. And for the most part, I've had a good run and then had some great players, some great families, and I feel energized, and I love what I do.
Well, that's being able to do what you love. It never feels that busy. Time seems to fly when you're doing things you want to be doing.
Absolutely. It's great. There's never an issue getting up in the morning, because it's never the same day. It's never the same thing. It's very rarely. It's always something new, and there's always a new challenge. And you've got 23 different faces that you're dealing with on a daily basis, and there's going to be challenges individually with players, things you got to work on, and as a team. So it's for me, there's no monotonous to it. It's always new. It's always fresh, and I think that's what makes it great. And like I said, I feel very fortunate to have played a long time and coached a long time now and been a part of the game. It's been a part of my life ever since I can remember. So I'm, I feel very blessed to be still in it, for sure.
How has recruiting been with everything that's going on?
Yeah, people said, "Are you slow?" And I said, "No, it's actually probably busier." There's more. We were either going to win our first round or lose our first round, and eventually you're going to be going through the recruiting process at this time of year. So the only difference I'll say is I'm doing a lot more of these things where we're video conferencing and talking that way rather than maybe in-person meetings because of the situation. But a lot of players are very educated, families are very educated now, so they have a lot of good questions. And it's not a situation where it's one phone call and decisions will be made. Each player takes time, and they have to be comfortable, and we have to be comfortable. It's kind of like a two-way street, a marriage, if you want to call it. So it's been different this year. Like I said, probably more busy than normal, but just because people have time now to put a little bit more time into those conversations. And our networking, the calls we have, you can't go watch any tournaments or anything right now. So a lot of it's based on, what you saw early, video you can watch. And a lot of it's, you got to trust your networking, because some of those guys would have seen some of the players we're looking at more than we would have. So it's been a little different that way, but I think we're all in the same boat. I feel good about where we're at. We haven't made any announcements or official things like that, but we're trending in the right direction there. And I would say, as a general manager at this point in the year, I'd say 50% of my work's done. And we're still holding out hope that at some point we might be able to have a camp at some point in the summer, and that might not be realistic. It might be, I don't know at this time, but we just got to be flexible. I think that's the biggest thing. We can't be set in our ways here. We know the situation when we're going to have to adjust, no different than, I ask players to do at times. I got to be flexible. I got to adjust, and we will.
How tough was it to have the season end so abruptly?
It was very difficult, and it's never easy for any team, but we were up and down this year, and inconsistencies in our game. But I thought in the last, in the playoffs going into it, we were able to kind of unturn some stones and just kind of made our group a lot better. And we were playing truly our best hockey when it mattered the most. We went in and we played a very good series against Wenatchee, and we won in 5 games. But, all aspects of our game were good. Our power play, our PK, our individual play effort. It was everything kind of came together for us at the right time. And when you've kind of been up and down all year and you're playing that well, you can feel it in the room. And our next opponent would have been Penticton, who is an elite team, but I felt like we were, the makeup of our team, would have matched up well against them, and just the confidence we had. So it was tough to end it for our group that way. I really felt for our graduating players, especially our 20-year-olds. They'd worked so hard. They were really the core of our team and were really carrying us. And to not know it was your last game, I think is, as a player, that's tough. When you have closure, it's one thing, but no closure, and they were playing well. It was really hard. It was one of the hardest conversations I've had. And, there's no words I could say at the time that was going to make it any better. And that's, as a coach, sometimes you got to take different approaches to different situations. But that one was just, no one felt good about anything. And, I was the voice that had to pass on the message, but it wasn't easy for anybody. I know those 10 minutes were awfully difficult when I had to let the group know.
Yeah, well, coming from former players, you and I can't imagine not being able to play your final game. You're always,
especially as a 20-year-old.
Especially as a 20.
Guys, yeah, it was really hard because they played so well and they deserve to, keep going, and when it gets taken away from you, it's tough. And, there's no reversing it, obviously, and not a lot anybody could do. No one had answers. So it was just one of those things that was real difficult for everyone, but we'll get through it, and they'll get through it, and, they'll keep playing. And, it'll be one of those kind of black holes that will always stick with everyone, I guess.
Yeah, well, they'll have an interesting last game as a 20-year-old. A lot of 20-year-olds can't say that. These guys, every single last one of them will have that. Before we go any further, I have to let the listeners know that they're hearing birds chirping in the background, and that you are the first guy to have to do this outside, because you can. Obviously, being in beautiful British Columbia, you got a nice backdrop.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's beautiful out here right now. It's this evening. It's about I think about 15 degrees out still here at this time. So I know that the family's inside doing there, and the dog's in there. So I'm going with the birds in the outside, so you guys don't have to hear the dog barking.
Being an Alberta boy, now everywhere you've coached, will you ever leave BC again?
I think in coaching, you got to be, flexible, and you go where your career takes you a little bit. But it's a fabulous place. I visited, obviously, through when I was younger, but never really, lived out here for an extended period of time until I started coaching out here. And it's fantastic. There's great things about, Alberta. I'm an Alberta guy, and I love Alberta, and I love going home. So I think we're just blessed, and especially, in Canada in general, but, in the two provinces that I have the most history with, I feel pretty blessed once again. But it's fabulous. Like you said, this area doesn't get a lot of snow, so it's the weather's great. And there's always lots of activities to do, but it's a different cold out here with the rain, and that took a while to get used to. But I do miss the bright sunny days, and some of the the snow and the things that come with having snow as well. So it was a good change. It was a time I needed a change at the time, and I think, like I said, both are fantastic. But we got a great little setup here for sure.
Yeah, well, you're not losing any sleep when we get -2 the other day and the wind's just howling, and you're like, what is going on, Lloydminster? But,
yeah, no, I don't miss that at this time of year, that's for sure.
Let's talk about Michigan Tech. You played 3 years for the Blazers. Then you sign with Michigan Tech, Division I NCAA, and you head out there at 18 years old. What was that jump like?
Well, it was huge. And the thing that, and my advice to players is, don't go too soon. And there was no internet back then. It was, you'd get a magazine or a book, and you'd see the pictures, and they'd fly you down, and you'd look. And, I knew a few guys from junior, had a connection, obviously, with, at the time, Devin Hartnell, who played in Lloyd as well. And obviously that name will resound with a lot of fans, because I think all three boys played for the Blazers or Bobcats at some point. So that was kind of the connection there. And I wanted, like I said, the familiarity was good, and they did a good job. And the biggest thing for there is, I had different options, different places, but a lot of, some of the schools wanted me to come back and play another year. And I couldn't wrap my head around that at the time. Why are they asking this? I felt like I'd done what I needed to at that level. But so I did come out to Michigan as a true freshman, an 18-year-old. And I got my eyes opened up pretty quickly about how good the league was, the preparation that the players had put in. And it was a big jump playing against 23, 24-year-olds, coming out of your 17-year-old year. So just the strength part of it, the speed, I wasn't ready for it. And I think nowadays players are much more educated on that jump and what it looks like, because of, media coverage, video, all that stuff that's available to these guys. And just people are just better educated, clear and simple now. So if there's one thing that I would do over is I definitely would have played another year at junior. I wasn't ready at the time. And to go in as a true 18-year-old freshman, even nowadays, you got to be an elite, very good player. And there are examples of that being done. But, for the most part, I see a lot more players, play out their 18, 19-year-old years or even into 20 and end up going and then playing college hockey afterwards. And, I've never had a player come back and say, Coach, I'm glad I left a year earlier, but I've had a lot come back and say, I wish it would have stayed another year. I think it would have been more productive for me and the team in the 4 years that I had there. So it's not a rush. And I think, the fit's got to be there for the team and the player, but the player's got to be ready. And I think if you're dominating at one level and you're confident, then, you're ready to take that next step. But if you're not there, it doesn't mean you're not going to get there. It just might take you a little bit more time. And I think that's the one thing about, that route is it does have time on your side. So you don't need to rush things. So, for me now, that's some advice that I try to pass on to the players. It's not about me, trying to hold players or keeping them back, because if they move on, it's good for our program, it's good for them, and it helps me recruit the next class. So it's just about timing and making sure that they're prepared for that jump. But it's a significant jump. I would go on to say that I think it's probably the biggest jump they'll make in their career. I think going from college to pro afterwards is going to be a jump, but that you're talking about, the pace, the strength from junior to college, it's a big one.
How tough was that first year then?
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, you go from being the guy and playing a lot, playing in all situations, and then you go to a situation where you're just clawing to be in the lineup, and that was a big change. We had older guys and they were good players, so it was, just a situation. Like I said, if I had to do it over again, I would have been a year older, a year stronger, and some of those players would have moved on to pro or graduated, and that gap would have been that much smaller for me to try and overcome. And it just it was a lot, and I think that first year was a real eye opener. The second year I thought went a little bit better, but once again, I was still just 19 years old and was still trying to find my way against older competition. So it was like I said, it was a good experience there. The school was good. Loved the league, all those things. It just it's a big jump, especially for young guys. And if you're 18 and 19 and not playing a lot, those are big development years, and I think you got to have the puck. And, we just decided as a group to, that following year as a 20-year-old, that it would probably be, in my best interest to try and get somewhere where I was going to play a little bit more. And I think that was, why the decision was made. Nothing other than that.
So why go to Seattle then?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Once the word kind of got out that I was thinking of coming back, Seattle had a real good team, and I believe Red Deer still had me on their protected list. So, at the time, Red Deer they didn't know exactly, where they were going to be. I think they had a good team, but Seattle was, ranked, I think, third in all across the country that year, and they had real high expectations, and they had a lot of guys coming back. So, they did a trade in the summer, and they acquired my rights, and then kind of started the recruiting process there, and ended up deciding to go there. So that was kind of how it unfolded. Daryl Plandowski's a guy that kind of was, behind that a little bit, another guy in Lloyd there, but he was at the time working for Seattle or helping them out. And that was kind of my connection a little bit through them. And it was just a good fit. I knew they were going to be a good team. I knew they had a lot of returning, and as a 20-year-old, you definitely want a chance to win. And I'm not saying that couldn't happen in Red Deer, but it just, for whatever reason, they saw something in me and wanted me, and made the trade, and it ended up that I ended up playing there as a 20.
How crazy is it? Your episode, I think you're episode 82 now. And I hear that connection thing over and over and over again. You can almost see in any one person's career, how they follow or have somebody pull them to an area. And I hadn't even made the connection. Daryl's been on the podcast. I hadn't even thought about that. Him hooking you up with getting you to Seattle. That hadn't even crossed my mind. But that's interesting. And I'm sure you see that all the places you've been. I mean, in Spruce Grove, it's evident with all the kids coming from this area. And Irma, I mean, you're very connected to this place for sure. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. I hadn't really thought or given much thought to Seattle. I had stared at and went, I wonder why you went back to Seattle after 2 years in the NCAA.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you go with people you know or a little bit or trust, I guess. And I think if people, especially as a coach now, if players come in and have a good experience, they're my number one marketing tool. If they, if their family is happy with the player's development and the player had a good experience, they're going to tell anybody that asks all about it. So I think that's the number one thing that I'm happy about, is that these kids are getting good experiences, they're moving on, and I'm able to use those contacts throughout, whether it's the coaching world or old parents or players previous that have come through. I think the game is all about relationships, and you're going to build those throughout, and you're going to have friendships that last a lifetime, and through colleagues or even former players now going to weddings and things like that. So it's fantastic. Like I said, there's so much that goes on outside of the rink, even on a personal note with these guys as they get a little bit older and you see them moving into, doing different things in their lives. It's very rewarding. And, I'm at the age now, like I said, where I'm starting to, that first group is starting to get, like I said, get married, have kids, and move into their own things. So it's been fantastic. And, like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world, but you're 100% right. Your network will grow as you put in time, and you're going to lean on different people for advice, especially when you're making big decisions, whether as a player, as a coach, and no one can shoulder everything on their own. So the more people you have around you that you believe in and trust, it only makes your job easier.
Absolutely, yeah. That leaning on people you can trust is a huge thing. Having the ability.
Yeah, it's I think you want to surround yourself with good people, and I think that having that trust factor is huge, and having everyone on the same page. And I attribute a ton to that, of any success or had as a player, but especially as a coach, having a coaching staff on the same page. And I've been very fortunate to coach with some great people, and I've always felt that there was, that connection. And if there's not, the players will feel it, and there'll be a disconnect there. So it's paramount that everyone's on the same page, and you can't fake it. Trust is real, and it has to be genuine. And the way you build that is through your experiences together. And I think as time goes on, when you work with someone, you just start to realize, okay, he's really good in this area, and I can lean on him here, and he can lean on me for these things. And you kind of build a partnership amongst your staff as well. And, and then that partnership extends to your players.
We got to talk about the ECHL for a second. You go there for a year, right? You play your 20-year-old year out in Seattle. Then you head to the ECHL for 1 year, correct?
Yeah, 1 year, yeah.
1 year, 3 teams.
Yeah, it was interesting. I went to a real good team in Richmond, and they, we were doing well, and kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I was a young guy, kind of knew I'd be that 5, 6, 7 defenseman, so I was comfortable in that. We were doing good, and ended up getting traded, which was like my first time. So I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, what do you mean you're trading me? So didn't feel like I did anything wrong or anything, but so yeah, it was just a hockey trade. And it was my first time going through that, and ended up going to Baton Rouge, which great group of guys there as well. And it was just a situation there where it probably wasn't working out for me or the coach at the time, and it just probably wasn't the best fit. I was probably played a little bit of certain style, and he probably wanted a little bit more, looking back, probably a little bit more predictability. And as a young guy, an offensive guy, I was trying to find my way in the league. So I thought at the time I, had to do certain things to get noticed, and sometimes those things backfired. So kind of just didn't work out, and ended up getting moved
What are
again
certain,
to,
what are certain things?
yeah, I think for him at the time, and being a coach now, especially looking back in a pro environment, they're based on wins and losses, and that's the way it is. And I was a young guy, and I don't think he was really, wanting to take a lot of chances on me at the time when he had proven guys there. So, once again, it was tough to kind of to gain his trust, or as a player. It just kind of felt like it didn't really matter, good, bad, or indifferent. I was always going to be in the same situation. So, it just it wasn't kind of working out. So it wasn't like I asked for a trade or anything. It just, you could just tell it wasn't a good fit. And it's really the only time in my professional career where, as a coach or a player, where I didn't feel like there was a connection there. So it was different. Like it was hard. And so I ended up, getting, moved one last time, and ended up in Birmingham, which, they were struggling at the time, but got a chance to play and played quite a bit, and really enjoyed my time there. And, unfortunately I got a real bad injury at the end, and had to get surgery done on my nasal passage and nose. And it was a big one, and I had to sit out a year. So once I sat out that year, no hockey, no nothing. I couldn't do anything, because if you get your blood pumping and you there's a mesh in my side of my face, it would too much risk. So the doctor said you have to take a year off. So I came back and finished school at U of A, become a teacher, and then met some people through there, and kind of got into Vimy Ridge, the hockey program there. And it was kind of a decision: do you go back and play, or do you start into the next phase? And the next phase was eventually going to come. It was just a matter of time, and I just didn't know if that situation was going to be there down the road. So I decided to move into the next phase. And looking back, like I said, I have some regrets not going back and playing a couple more years, because I think I could have, and had some fun, and had some better years. But I just wasn't willing to pass up the opportunity, in front of me to get into that school, and be a part of that, situation there. And, looking back, I think it was definitely the right decision. But you have regrets. I wish I could have, like I said, played a couple more years, but I still wouldn't pass up that opportunity to go back.
What on earth did you do to your nose?
Well, this is one of those stories that people don't really know about, but if it happened today, the player would probably still be suspended for a decade. But I got hit like with basically a baseball swing with a stick. It was just a situation where some frustration set in on the other side. The other player, we'd actually been traded for each other. That was the trade, is one guy went one way, I went the other way. And I don't know if it was a personal thing because of that or what, but I still don't have the answers. But it was one of those nasty ones that you hear about from back in the day, and it was bad. And I had to, like I said, I had to get surgery, and they went up, I had to go through and get some mesh in there, and some different things. But it's some orbital bone things, sinus passage, nasal, all that stuff was basically reconstructed. So it was, the guy that did it was, fantastic. And, looking back, I, feel pretty lucky that he was in Birmingham at the time, because, as the years went on, you wouldn't be able to tell. And, if it wasn't for him, who knows what it could look like now. But he did a great job. It was a frustrating time for me in my career, for sure, because there was really nothing warranted before it. And, it was frustrating for sure. But, if it doesn't happen, I don't know, where am I now? I don't know. Like, everything happens for a reason, I guess they say.
You're telling me you didn't skate by him and give him a little
No,
poke? Nothing?
nothing. We went in the corner together, and just kind of like a puck battle. And the puck went up ice. So I turned to go up the ice, and I was skating up the ice. And the next thing I know, he was behind me, and kind of the old baseball swing, and I just remember it dropped me instantly, and seeing stars, and there was quite the brouhaha after it. I heard, so I wasn't part of it, but they got me off the ice. But it was one of those not so good ones. It honestly, it's not talked a lot about, but there was a lot of video back then. But if it happened nowadays, like I said, the punishment would be severe for sure. But he did get a substantial amount of games for sure. It's not like it was swept under the rug, but just one of those incidents, wrong place at the wrong time, and it definitely affected my career without a doubt.
We talk about the 20-year-olds this year losing their career to COVID.
Yeah,
that's one way to lose your hockey career. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was a bad one for sure, and you never forget it. That's for sure. And you talk about moving to BC and in Alberta, when it get really cold, I could feel it. It would go numb. So that's why I had to get out of there. But no, it's one of those things. It's over and done now. At the time, it was not great, and it was hard to mentally get around. Like when you heard the words, at 21, that you have to take a full year of hockey off. That's the last thing you're thinking about, right? It's, where am I going to play? Am I going to come back and try to play university hockey, or am I going to try to go back and play minor pro? Those are the things you're thinking about, not about I got to be real careful here, or else I could be back for a second surgery. So it was really, there was no decision to me. He didn't give me a decision. He basically told me, you have to do this for the long-term health of your body. And he said, after a year you should be fine, but he's like, you have to look after it. This is going to take a long time to heal. So that was it.
How fun was your only year of pro, though? I assume you don't have a girlfriend at the time. Every time you're traded, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, it was good. No, nothing really tied me down. It was great. I saw a lot of different places and was able to do a lot of different things. And, it was a good time. And, like I said, the first one really, really caught me off guard, because it kind of been the first time it happened. And then, after that, it was, I met a lot of people, and people I still, in touch with today. And, it was good to see how different, older players went about their business. Was at the highest level? No, but, there was guys that were very serious, that were trying to get to the next level. And there was obviously guys that had been in the league a long time and kind of knew their place. But there was a lot of different people in different parts of their career. But, that being said, everyone was real good to deal with. And, just anytime you're in the game, it's a good thing. So I enjoyed my time down there, saw a lot of different parts of the States that I would have never ever got that chance. So it definitely gave me some life experience for sure.
When you look back on it, what's the one city that you played in that sticks out playing in the East Coast? Was there a group of fans? Was there a team? Was there a team name, a city?
You know what? I don't know if there was one spot that Florida at the time was real good. Like, I remember them being a really good team. They had a good run in the East Coast. I'm not even sure if they're still in that league anymore, but at the time they were kind of the place to be. And I remember going in there, and we definitely had our hands full. And they were really good. But I think I don't think there was one spot that I was looking forward to or anything like that. To me, it was all new. And I think in your first year, like anything in any league, every place you go is like, oh wow, this is interesting or different, or you hear different stories from guys that, well, this happened last year or whatever. But anytime it's your first year in a league, it's always good to see the buildings and see the different things. And like I said, there's not a lot of surprises in life anymore, so anything that's new is always exciting.
When you come back and you start into Vimy, is that what you do then until you start coaching?
Yeah, so I kind of got into Vimy, and it's funny. Steve Hamilton is a very good friend of mine now, and mentor, and that's kind of how I got started in all this. And I kind of finished my university, and I was his student teacher actually. And how we met was through a softball tournament, if you could believe that, a slow pitch. And he was a guy that we brought in that I had no connection to. We just ended up sitting down across from each other at breakfast, and we got talking. And he actually went to Northern Michigan, and I was at Michigan Tech, and he was obviously there before. And and that kind of started a lifelong friendship now. And he was already there, and I said, hey, I'm looking, I got to find something. He's like, well, you should come and see what you think. And so we worked it out and did that there, and was able to make a good impression amongst the staff there, and kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do, and kind of got my foot in the door there. And then I was playing a little bit of senior hockey back home a little bit, just to kind of help out a little bit, just to stay active. And he came to me after a couple of years and said, we're looking for an assistant coach, and they were going through a transition year, the first year in Fort Saskatchewan, and it was going to be his first year as a head coach. And I think they'd only won, 8 or 9 games the year before. And my first question, I still remember this, is, do you guys have a chance to win? Because I don't want to be part of something that's going to take a lot of time away, that if there's no chance. And, he sold me on the whole rebuild part, and they did a great job. Jim Crossan was the general manager at the time, and I was there, and Steve Hamilton, Ryan Marsh, who's in Saskatoon right now, and then Dustin Schwartz, who's the goalie coach with the Oilers. That was our staff. So, at the time, I don't think any of us knew the, history or success that we may have moving forward, but I got involved with them, and I fell in love with coaching. I really did. I always liked teaching, but I loved the coaching part of it. And, as time went on, I just kept getting more and more involved and emotionally connected to it. And then, as they say, the rest is history. I was an assistant for 4 or 5 years with Steve. And then when Steve went to the Oil Kings, I took over in Spruce Grove, and that kind of gave me my first start as the head guy. So, it's funny how, like I said, certain things happen. If I don't sit down for breakfast with them across the table, who knows, right? So it's just one of those things.
What is it about Spruce that, like, that between in the last 12 years, you guys, or Spruce, you're not at Spruce anymore, but Spruce Grove and Brooks specifically in the AJHL have been the top. Now you can sit there and go, oh, well, there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but there's something else. I mean, that right there, I mean, you walked in at the ground level when you guys were trying to turn that program around. There must be, you're in Vernon. I assume you're trying to instill some of the things that Spruce had in those early years. What were some of the things that you guys really tried to implement as you tried to build up to that peak level, and then hold, obviously, that peak for the next however many years as you try and stay atop?
Yeah, I think winning is very difficult, as we talked about earlier, but, doing it year after year is tremendously hard, and it's staying sharp, staying hungry. And the one thing about junior is there are going to be turnovers. You're not going to have the same team year after year. And, I think that was always the biggest challenge, is keeping everyone hungry, keeping everybody sharp. But I think we just, wanted to, once again, just have a real professional approach of how we did it, how we conducted ourselves each day. And, how does that start? Well, it starts in your recruiting. And I think we always try to recruit a certain type of person, more so than, a player. I think we had a type of player that we liked, guys that we wanted to be part of our program. But, the number one thing was always the character and the type of person they were. And I think that's really what built it from the ground up. And, there's been numerous examples where, as a coach or GM, either with Steve or myself, that we maybe passed on a guy that had more points, but, we took a guy that maybe had less points, but just was a different player, different type of character, played well when it mattered the most, didn't shy away in the playoffs, put up numbers when the games were hard. And, I think we really dove into that. And I think, looking back and transitioning that is when times get tough and you're going to run into hard times, you're going to fall back on your character. And I think that's what, we were able to do. And we always did, is we put an emphasis on how important that was. So the dressing room was always strong, because when tough times hit, they were able to stick together and they didn't pull apart. And I think, the staff really emphasized being a good teammate and sharing the puck, and, not being afraid to play with good players, like we talked about, practicing with good players and just creating that championship culture. And, no jealousy, just, support. And some nights it's going to be one guy, and the next night it might be somebody different. But, the guy that scores the game-winning goal is just as important as the guy that blocked the shot in overtime on a PK. There's so many different things that go into winning. And when you talk about players, I've heard so many times, "Oh, I just want to win, coach." Well, there's more to it than that. There's so much detail that goes into being able to win as an individual and win as a group. And I think the emphasis was put in the right areas there. And I've always maintained that and continue to try to do that anywhere where I coach. And, I get it. Everybody likes to score goals, and I want to see kids score too, but there's just so much more to the game now than just that. And I think it's always been that way. And I really try to emphasize that side of it, and, try to bring groups together and truly care about each other, genuinely care about the person next to you. And, I think that's always going to take you a long ways. And then secondly, you got to have the talent too. I think you got to have the horses, and we were able to kind of combine, having good people and good players. And I think Brooks does a great job of that. They've been very consistent as well. So, there's teams now that have had some good runs, and I truly, come back to that is you got to have the talent, but you got to have the right people as well.
And I hear culture, structure, right? Because as good as having 10 really good players come in, if you don't have the right culture there with the structure built in, and that takes time, and that takes effort, and that takes making sure that every year that you continue to grow upon what you've done, so kids coming in know exactly what to expect. That builds itself as well year by year.
Yeah, when they walk in the door, they know what they're signing up for. And I don't, try to hide that when I'm recruiting them either. Is it's going to be done a certain way. And our room has always been a strength of ours. I've been fortunate to have some tremendous captains and leaders, leadership groups. And, it would be awkward. I'm not in there every minute of the day, but I would assume that it would be awkward for someone to step outside or in there or step outside the circle of what we're trying to do, because you'd get reined in pretty quickly. And I think, I've played on teams where that's not the case. And that's where, everyone kind of gets on their own page, and there's no structure or consequences or no accountability to each other. And I think that's what made those teams great. When I was there, is that there was a ton of internal accountability, and it started with me, but they looked after each other in there. And I think that was a big part of the character, and having strong leaders that they could do that, and they respected each other. And if someone wasn't doing what we were expecting, then there was some guilt there. They knew it, and it was never a pissing match, if you want to say it. They knew it, they understood it, and they were better for it. So, I've got a lot of time for the players, obviously, that came through there, and, they're still having success, which is great. And, it was definitely a strength of all those teams and the championship teams for sure.
That's something special that, for a coach to be able to do for a group, is to give them the belief in themselves to police themselves almost, right? Like that does not happen on every team. Not at all.
For sure. And that takes time too. I think, that's not going to happen in the first year. That's something that's created over time, and it takes some time to get to that point. And, I've went through it, 3 times now with you. You're walking into a situation that might not be the best, and, been able to leave it in a better spot than I found it. So I think that just, takes time, and it's not going to happen overnight, but that's where early it's real important that the coaches, there's no gray area. This is how we do it. This is how we want it. And if not, then it's not going to be a good fit. And, once you get to a certain point and all of them recognize that, and over a course of a year or two, you start to feel that in the group, and you can almost feel the switch. You feel the confidence start to come. You start to see some swagger, how they treat each other, how they talk to each other. And, I think that's the key thing, is the coach is real important in the early years. And if you're in one place for long enough and you do a good job early, then the players, start to take over a little bit more, especially in the second half of the year. It becomes their room, and I've got to trust them too. And, the leadership group can come to me anytime for help. And I always tend to have a pretty good pulse on things, but, when you got good leaders and you're hearing it from the people beside you, and you trust each other and you believe in each other, it doesn't always have to come from me. That's for sure.
How fun was it to be in the same place for a decade?
Yeah, you know what? It was great. I have nothing but, fond memories of Spruce Grove, and it really kind of gave me my start. And, the owners at the time, Darren and Cheryl Myshak were were like a second family to me. It was, fantastic. Their support, always very supportive of me and, the decisions that I had to make. And, they just kind of let me, do what I needed to do and kind of stayed out of the way. And, I've always kind of appreciated them for that. They were tremendous fans, tremendous support for the team, emotionally invested in us and, being able to have success, but just the amount of good people that came through in regards to players. You go back and look through, I think in my time there, I had over 100 kids go to Div 1 schools, and 21 or 22 have played in the National Hockey League or signed National Hockey League contracts. So, you put that over 6 years, those numbers, when you really look at it, that's, I'm really proud of that. But I'm really proud of, seeing guys that are, doctors now or firemen or lots of different, aspects. You see them doing different things. And so for me, when you look at all of that hockey and the life skills that they learned, that's when I know that, I was able to make a difference. Winning championships and winning games was a lot of fun, but we're always going to remember that. But for me as a coach, there's a lot of other things that I'm going to be just as equally as proud of. So that time in Spruce was a special time. Like I said, I worked with some special people on staff. Mike Ringrose was with me right to the end. And, he took over after I left. He's in Grant Mac now. He's a tremendous coach. Had Larry Draper there, Steve Hamilton, Dustin Schwartz, Ryan Marsh, like the whole group that I was able to work with there. It was just, that's what made Spruce Grove special. It was, we weren't a big market team, but we were able to, always find a way to be there in the end.
You bring up a cool point too. It was something I was coached by Larry Wintoniak. I don't know if that name would ring a bell. He was in the SJHL during the, I don't think he ever coached in the AJ, if memory serves me correct, but he got a hold of me personally at a very influential time in my life, which is that 18 through 20-year-old span. And I mean, for some kids, it's younger than that if they're coming into the junior ranks a little earlier, like yourself. But as a coach, to recognize that, winning and losing, don't get me wrong, it's a business. You want to win. But at the same time, you're shaping kids' lives, and some of the lessons you're talking about and building a group to be accountable to each other, those are lessons that go far beyond the rink.
100%. I think it's very rarely, even, once you get into, business or whatever it is, that you're a one-man show or working by yourself, you're going to have responsibilities of a group usually. And that's, you gotta be able to work together and you gotta be able to work through things. It's not always going to be easy. And I think it's, when hard times come, you want to make sure that these guys have the tools to be able to deal with it. And sport itself, definitely provides so many lessons. But, as a coach, you're right. You have them at a very influential age in regards to their development as players, but definitely as people. And you'd be surprised at how many kids try to come down for breakfast nowadays without having a shower. You weren't one of those guys, were you? So I'm on them. You got to come down, shower, be ready for the day, set yourself up. So it's just the little things. I'm sure my old players will get a laugh out of that, but it's,
you gotta have a shower before breakfast.
You bet. You got to be clean and ready for the day and wide awake and ready to go, because it's the start of the day. So we make sure that, that's just, like I said, it goes back to a culture thing and how we wanted to do it. And, just being prepared for the day. And it's, they learn to, each coach has certain things. That's the thing for me where, I want them awake when they're down there and ready to go for their day, because we usually leave right from there and go to the rink, and, something's going to be happening. So, it's just one of those little things, it's a little thing that goes a long ways in my opinion. But it's just making sure you're prepared for the day and, getting up, brushing your teeth, making your bed, just it's easy to walk away from your bed and not do it, and it takes some effort and some commitment to make your bed, and it just kind of gets you in the, set up for the day and making sure that you're doing the right things.
Well, making your bed, I've heard. Taking a shower is a new one. It makes sense to me, but making the bed's the one I've always heard. Taking a shower is by far a new one. Although, once again, just setting yourself up the right way. Those early morning wins translate into a mindset for the rest of the day. So it makes complete sense to me.
For sure. That's something I've always done. And I don't know, it's you're right. It just sets them up for the day. They're awake, they're ready, they're confident, and showered, brushed teeth, away we go here.
How how big was it for you to have a guy like Steve Hamilton for the first 4 years to kind of learn the ropes from? Because I mean, like, you get, I think it's 4 years under him, and then your first year as a head coach, you've already won the league, and you're trying to repeat. And I mean, for most coaches, that just doesn't happen, right? Like, I mean, you're not given, um, you've been a part of it and got to learn and kind of be one of the guys, but not the guy. And to have a little bit of that pressure off, I'm assuming really helped in the beginning.
Yeah, I think there was, I learned a lot from Steve, and just, people skills, how you treat people. And, he was very, very good motivator, and he still is. He was able to get the most out of his guys in regards to, take X's and O's aside, he always had the teams were always emotionally charged. And, even just listening to him as a coach, I was, always excited to get going. So he has a gift in regards to motivating people. And I think he's very good at that. And, he was a teacher as well. So he takes the time to teach too. I think that's a skill that translates into coaching very well. So those are things that I definitely, learned from him, and how to deal with things. And you talk about accountability and culture. He was put to some real tough decisions at certain times in the year. And, there's the easy decision and there's the right decision. And, he really taught me the value of making the right decision and not the easy one. And I think that was, especially as a coach and as a GM. And I think that, I always remember those things. And, our friendship aside, we had a real good working relationship of what I could bring to the group and what he brought to the group, like I said. So very influential, mentor for me for sure, especially, early. And even now we talk a lot, about different things going on with our teams, and, different nuances of the game, and get his thoughts on it and what he's trying and different things like that. So to have someone you truly trust like that and have a friendship like that to call up at any point is a blessing for me. I feel very thankful for that. And, definitely was a guy that I looked up to. And the pressure of that year coming into being the guy after we won, we had a very deep, talented team the first year. And, might have been arguably the most talented team that I'd been a part of as a coach. And that next year we had a big turnover, and I don't think people realize how much turnover we had, but we still had a core of 6 or 7 guys coming back that, might not have been high profile guys, but just going back to character and work ethic and doing things right. They were able to probably, put us into an area where, we weren't sure where we were going to be. And the next thing you know, we were, winning another championship. And I put a lot of stock into that, that core group coming back and really carrying us. And, kind of, there's things that stayed the same, and there was things that changed for sure. And, but we found a way, we worked together, and the partnership was strong. And, they believed in me. And I think that, being there with those guys for, years before, they trusted me. And I think that was a big part coming in. I wasn't an unknown. The trust was already there. And I think that trust allowed us to start well early, and then, continue on. I think, to be honest, I think that year we lost our first 2 games after the championship, and we'd only lost, I think, 5 or 6 the year before. And then, after that, I think we won, a whole bunch in a row, and we ended up 49-6 or something. But everyone forgets we lost the first 2.
Was Coffee Row after the first 2 all over you?
Yeah. No, it was, what, it wasn't too bad, because I think people in the community recognized that there was going to be turnover, and, we found our way. And, it wasn't like we played poorly. We just, hadn't won, but, the strength stayed there. And it seems crazy to talk about after 2 games, but especially with young guys, they can lose confidence pretty quickly, right? So we were able to kind of turn it around, and we got a big win in our 3rd game, and then kind of things started to fall in place. But, there was definitely pressure to try and make sure that, when you want to make sure you live up to the expectation of Spruce, and continuing on to build on it and try to make it better. And that was always my goal, is to try and continue to make it an even better place to play.
So 2012, you guys don't make the finals. Now, Spruce has kind of set this as like, if you don't make the finals, it wasn't a great year. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, because I'm laughing about how many years you guys make the finals. 2013, 14, 15, 16, you make the finals every year. In 2013, you lose to Brooks. 2014, you win. 2015, you win against Brooks. 2016, you lose to Brooks. What I want to know is how tough, and you've kind of alluded to it, how tough was it to make it to the finals every year? I know you set that expectation. Guys, we're going to the finals. But how tough was it to actually make the finals and win year after year after year after year when you're, anytime you do that, you're kicking guys out, right? Guys are moving on to the next level.
Yeah, it was very difficult. I think that's the thing. Like, to win once is hard, but to do it over an extended period of time is really difficult. And once again, that's just recruiting and buy-in and just the things you do behind the scenes. The day-to-day stuff is what's going to get you to that point. And it's funny that in my 6 years being the head coach there, we made it to the finals 5 of the 6, and that 1 year we were up with, I think, 30 seconds left. We went to game 7. It was against Fort McMurray, and we were down. We went into their barn, won game 6, came back for game 7, and we were up 2-1, I think, and they scored with 30 seconds left to tie it, and then they actually won it in overtime. So it was a dark few days after that, especially for me and our staff and the players. And you're so close to getting there, 30 some seconds, and then not being able to get there was extremely difficult. And it really, took a lot out of us. There's no question that one stung for me as a coach as much as any. And then the next year, it's funny, we had about half our team return, and it was the same scenario. The next year we were down actually 3-1 to them, and we came back and forced a game 7 in our building, and we actually won in overtime. So it was the year before, it was, as gut wrenching as well as it was just as equally as thrilling as to be on the other side of it the next year. So, back-to-back years, game 7s against the same team. They won the first year, we won the second year, but it was, I was real happy for the guys that went through it the year before, having to deal with that and how painful it was to see in the, what their faces look like after that win, and, coming back from down 3-1, it was spectacular. So one of the highlights for sure in my coaching career, I'll never forget it, but there is a toll, and I'm sure a lot of people have watched the Michael Jordan documentary, and he, the one quote he said is that, winning has a toll, it has a price. And I wouldn't disagree with that. It's just, guys, have to really step out of their shadow, and sometimes the leaders have to say things that might not always be the rosiest, but has to be said, and you push people to places maybe they've never been. And I think once you get there and you taste it, it's like an addiction. You want it again, and if you've never really been there, you never really know. But once you get there, and how hard it is, it's tough to let go, and you want to get back there. So I think that was always our motivating factor. And we had a saying when I was there, is that the playoffs had to run through Spruce Grove. We wanted to finish first every year. We wanted home ice advantage, and they had to beat us to get there. And that's how we approached it. And, we put the pressure on ourselves. We knew we had a target on our back every night we played. We knew we were going to get the best of everybody. So there were no off nights for those teams. And I think that's what helped us in the playoffs, is that we always saw everybody's best. When they came to playoffs or we went to their rink, we knew they were getting their best. And I think that really set us up for, playoff success, because there were no easy nights, and, they took that mentality.
How about going to the WHL? You finally, after a 10-year stint in the AJ, decide or get the call maybe, finally? I don't know. Maybe you can tell us, was there other calls, or was that the first call? I mean, you over coaching there, the head coach, GM, I mean, you get to go to the Western Canada Cup a couple times after winning. You get to coach the Western, what is it? The U19. Yes, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Right? You get selected as an assistant, as a head coach. So you are all over the map as far as being on the radar, I assume, of a lot of teams. You were the CJHL Coach of the Year at one point. What was it about Vancouver that jumped out, or were they the first team that came knocking?
You know what? There was different opportunities throughout those 10 years, but it had to be the right fit. I think I had a young family, I still do, and it had to be the right fit for me at the time. And like I said, I was treated extremely well in Spruce, so I was in, not ever looking to really get out unless something at a higher level or came along, whether that was college or going a different route with the Western Hockey League. There was different things, but it had to be the right fit. And I think at the time when I made the decision, it was a new challenge for me. I'd been in Spruce a long time, and sometimes you just need a change. And for me, I think that was the biggest thing. And the opportunity came probably, at the same time that I needed to change. And Darren and Cheryl had kind of, let me know that they were probably going to, sell the team. And when I was done, they were kind of going to be done. And that was kind of how, tight our friendship was, is that they were very honest with me. And it was just one of those things where it was just probably time for me and maybe for them as well. And, like I said, I just, my personal life and, the coaching side, it was sometimes change is good. And it wasn't that things were bad there. It just, like a new challenge, new place to live, just a whole new kind of start. And, I knew that, coming out here, there'd be a lot of challenges, and, the team hadn't done well the 3 or 4 years before, but I'd also had the experience of going through it 2 times before, and kind of, it was never a perfect game plan, but had a good idea of what I was going to need to do to try and get it turned around. And, was, like I said, the reason for the change is just probably just more circumstance and on my side and kind of what was going on. And, was awfully proud of what we were able to do here in 2 years. We weren't good the first year, and I kind of, expected that. And then the second year we really turned the corner. And, like I said, the culture, the time you put in early as a coach is, eventually going to pay off. And we started to see that in that second year. We were playing well, and I felt for those guys. They were unfortunate. We took Victoria to Game 7, who was a very good team. And throughout the series, I kind of thought that, maybe we didn't get the fate we deserved at times, but that's hockey. And there was no shame in our guys, their work ethic, and how they, approached and how good they were to each other as teammates. And you could tell that team had really turned the corner. And, it was led by, guys like Darian Skeel and Tyler Benson and Ty Ronning. And, those guys hadn't tasted the playoffs in their career, and they're heck of, players. And to be a part of seeing them get to that level and how far our team came in 2 years was fantastic. It was very rewarding. And, I think they were well prepared to continue on success, and, they were able to do that. So it was the times here were great. And I met a lot of good people, and was able to work with a lot of good players, and learned a lot in the league, learned a lot from other coaches, not only on our staff, but, throughout the league. And I think everybody's, very competitive, obviously, but there's some veteran guys around that I've known over the years that have coached that, were very open to talking to me about things, and knowing that I was a first-year guy in that league. And so I was able to gain a lot of friendships and learn a lot. And it was fun to see that team transition from, not being very strong to really turning the corner.
Did you have a little bit of nerves your first game behind the bench in the big league?
Yeah, no, it was a little bit nerve wracking. Yeah, it was, it's just, like I said, everything is different. Everything was new. So definitely, I think anytime you switch or go to different things, you got to kind of find your way a little bit. But, I was confident in myself though, too. Like I felt like I was, ready for it. And, I knew where we were as a group, and, what that year was going to be about. And, we were able to do that. And, ton of injuries, which, kind of has haunted that organization for the last few years and to the last couple here, but, we're able to get through it, and, made me a better coach. It was really my first year, going through a losing season like that as a coach. So, I learned a lot of things too about, different things that needed to be adjusted. And, everything for me is you're gonna have your goods and your bads, and you're gonna learn, and it gives you experience, and that's what you get for going through those situations. But like I said, you're there when you're at the rock bottom to start, and then you work your way back into where you give yourself a chance, and you deserve to be in the upper echelon and playing in the playoffs. it was great to see, especially for the kids, like I said, that went through 2 or 3 years of not having a lot of success to being able to be involved with that group to get them back to that level was great.
How tough was it to get relieved of duties then after 2 years? I know they had a new GM come in, and I'm just reading news articles. I guess I just kind of look at it like, man, that's tough luck. You're turning the corner by looks of it, right? You had a 35-point jump season to season. You're in the playoffs for the first time, and I think it was 4 years. Like, everything looks like it's turning the corner, and then new GM comes in, and you're out the door.
Yeah, it was really hard, to be honest. That one, stung deep for sure. And you never, I wasn't expecting it. And once the change at the general manager happened, you never know. But like you said, we had a 35-point improvement, which was number one across the league. And I think our power play was in the top 10. Our special teams, everything. The statistics would state that you would probably get another chance to come back and keep going. But everyone, as I've learned, kind of has their guys, and when there's change, there's usually more change. And unfortunately, I got caught up in that a little bit, but I wouldn't have changed a whole lot, to be honest. I think, like you said, we hadn't been there in 4 years. We got there. We maybe, like I said, we could have easily been into the second round, but just the hurdle of getting those players to believe in themselves again was the biggest thing. And the reward for seeing them do that and, get a winning season and kind of get it turned around was fantastic. So I wouldn't change that part. Like I said, it felt like our staff did the best we could. Our team was fully engaged, and it's just one of those circumstance things that hockey isn't always fair, and it's not always pretty. And for me, that was I've been very fortunate and been rewarded with some good times, some great memories. And though that day was a tough day for sure, but you got to move on. And you think about it for a while, obviously, and you never let it go. But it definitely was unexpected. And that being said, there's been a lot of very good coaches let go for different reasons, but for me, and I think the biggest thing was continuing to have confidence in what I was doing, and I think the numbers reflected that, and it was more based on a personal decision with a change at the top. And like I said, I just was probably not, I didn't have the relationship that maybe they were looking for in a different guy.
How's that affected you moving forward, do you think, Jade? Like, are you gonna try and go back up, do you think, at some point if they came a knocking?
Yeah, I think it's always, once again, I'm real happy in Vernon right now. Same thing, treated tremendously well. I'm the GM coach there, so it's a great place to coach, great place to be involved. The fans are very, very passionate, and very, very competitive league, very deep league, a lot of parity, and I think that's it's made it fun to coach in. There's no easy nights, and our division, especially in the interior, is fantastic, and the league itself is fast, it's skilled. So I'm enjoying my time there for sure. Now, that being said, I'm no different than anybody else. The right opportunity came along, and it was a good fit, and there was some stability there. And I'd probably approach it a little different than the last one, but definitely if something came along that was a good fit, would have no problems going back to that league.
Now that you've been in the BC and you've coached in the AJ, what's the main difference you see between the two?
You know what? Both are good leagues. I think both are good leagues. Both are churning out good players. The one thing I would say is that, like I said, I think there's at this point in time, and that could change, is that there's probably a little bit more parity out here right now. In Alberta, like you said, it seemed like there was 4 or 5 teams every year that were real contenders, and then after that there might have been a bit of a drop off. But out here, I find that it's a lot of parity. And don't get me wrong, I think there was as it came to my time as an end in Spruce, towards the end, the parity was definitely coming. From when I first started to where it was at the end, much improved. Lots of good people running organizations. So I thought that gap really improved. But the one thing I noticed right away out here was, a lot of parity and, a lot of good people running it. So I think you're nitpicking at anything. I think both are good leagues. I think the BCHL is definitely built on speed and skill. There's no question. That's like a building block out here, and there's definitely a lot of high end talent. That's for sure.
Well, I want to move on to the final segment. It's 5 quick questions for you before I let you go. It's Crude Master Final 5. So shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald, who've been huge supporters of the podcast since I started. So the first one is, if you were going to pick I had written down defense partner, but now knowing you're a forward, maybe I should just say line mates. Who would you want to be your line mates? You could take anyone.
Well, I'm a big Oilers fan, so I'd have to go with the 2 best players that have played there. So Gretzky and McDavid would make sense, right?
Yeah, that'd be all right, eh?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the Oilers. So it's been a long few years here, but this was the year. Hopefully they get back and can get back in. So being an Alberta guy, it was natural. But I grew up watching Gretzky, and then obviously McDavid's just a generational talent. So seeing hockey, it's hockey all the time, watching it, it's those guys still inspire me to watch games late at night just to see them, and when you have players like that you're always tuning in to watch. I think that's what the game needs, and it'd be fantastic to be on the ice for a couple shifts with those guys.
What do you think of the NHL's plan to do a 24-team playoffs?
You know what, if it's safe and they can get back, I'm for anything. I miss sports in general as much as anybody here. So if they can get back and it's safe for them and their families, and it gives people something to watch on TV, then that's great. And I think that's any format for me is works with this going on. And as long as they're able to make it work, and that's the key thing. And if it's 18, 24, whatever it is, just to get them back out there would be I think big boost to the people in general, the fans, giving people something to watch at this time, where I think we're all a little bit tired of watching the same things over and over here. So they're obviously leaders in the sporting world, but the world in general, everyone's watching to see what they're going to do, and I know they'll do a good job with it.
If you could sit down and pick the mind of one person, sit down and have a beverage with them, who would be the guy you'd pick, or girl?
Oh, you know what? I think for me, it's funny. People ask me, who are your favorite coaches when I first started, and it's funny. Todd McClellan was a guy I always wanted to meet, and Dave Tippett was another guy, and those were the obviously the 2 guys that came back and coached in Edmonton. So I always look to watch their teams. I think their teams are very well structured, and I know that when Todd especially was in San Jose, they did some different things there, especially on their special teams. That I'm always a big fan of trying to be creative and do different things. And I always thought his teams did that. And then, obviously with Tippett, he's always very sound defensively. And, if I had the chance to sit down with those 2 guys, I think that would be in the NHL 2 guys that I would, be interested in talking to for sure. And I'd pick any of them. You don't get to coach NHL by chance. So you get a chance to talk to any of those guys. I think you're, pretty lucky to sit down with them. But if I was to choose 2, I think those would be 2 guys I'd be definitely interested in chatting with.
When you sit and watch NHL or any games for that matter, are you constantly breaking down then what they're doing?
I do. I can't even watch it as a fan anymore. It's very difficult for me. It's hard. I'm always watching. I'll take stuff and we'll break it down for our guys or show them different clips that the NHL is doing. I do a lot of my teaching through NHL clips and then clips from us as well. So even just to sit down on a Thursday night, if I got a half an hour, I'm watching to see different entries, different exits, power play things, special teams, stick positioning, all that stuff. Because those guys they're all habits and they're pros. So anything you could pick up to give yourself a team a better chance, great. And a lot of it is, I don't think there's any secrets anymore with everything. It's about how hard and how well you do it. And I think that's the key, is trying to get your players to do it that way and do it hard and do it well.
What's one hobby you've picked up while you've been stuck in COVID lockdown?
You know what? It's like I said, I wouldn't say any hobbies, but I've been busy with the hockey side, but it's given me a chance a little bit to be around the kids a little bit more and family time, and just do some activities in the backyard, things like that, where, we'd be running around to their activities, which is always fun as a parent. But, just to be able to spend extra time with them has been good. But, that being said, I'm ready to get back if we can and get them back in activities, and because I'm a big believer in sports. So I want to see them get back and doing those things. But it definitely has given us a little bit more time to maybe just slow things down and take a breather and, kind of recalibrate ourselves and get ourselves ready when things get going back here again.
If tomorrow you could have one NHL team call you and say, hey, we need a coach, which one would you want to go to?
Ooh, that's a tough question, but like I said, I'm a huge Oilers fan, always have been. So I'm gonna stick with the Alberta team, and I think it's a safe answer. And I think any team, obviously, there's so many great team spots. There's different things. There's teams where you're gonna have lots of limelight. There's teams where it's gonna be quieter. So it's just one of those things. I don't think there's if you get a chance with anybody, you're taking it. But I'll stick with the hometown team and keep going down that. And good things are gonna happen this year when they get back.
Yeah, good on you, because I probably would have said Florida. I would have been like, I could probably handle the sun.
Yeah, no, there's positives to that too.
Final one: who's the toughest coach you have? You're preparing for, I'm assuming, the playoffs, and you're like, how we got X, or maybe it's just a single season game. You just know it's going to be a good match because they're tactician or their teams are so well played or prepared. What's the one guy that you just, here we go again?
Yeah, I think in the Alberta League, I think it would probably, we've had so many good rivalries. With the two guys I think of are probably Gord Thibodeau and Ryan Papineau, just because we saw each other so much, and I knew that we'd have to go through those teams to win. So they were always had good teams. They were always well prepared. Had good habits, all the things that make teams difficult to play against, and they had good depth. So teams were always well prepared, and both those guys have done a tremendous job. So I think in that league, I think that was, two guys that I knew were always going to be, a tough out in the playoffs. And then in the Western League, so many, great coaches, but I think anytime we went into Portland, coaching against Mike Johnson, I always appreciated the way his teams played, lots of, offense skill, and their special teams were always so good. And, I always remember, going into that rink, we actually had some success against them, but, seeing their lineup and, the experience that they had on their bench for sure. So he was always a guy that I knew that we were going to have our hands full. But, any night, I think in any league nowadays, the coaches are so well prepared, they just don't get there for no reason. And, it's very rare that you would see a team not ready to go anymore. So it's, I've got a lot of respect for coaches in all the leagues, and there's a lot of bright minds, lots of experience, and just happy to kind of be in that group and be part of it.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on. I think I can safely say this has been a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you taking some time. I hope the lockdown comes down or stops here soon, and everybody can get back to playing some hockey. And I know everybody's missing it. Everybody's missing everything, right? Like, it'd be just nice to get back to some normal things of life. And I really hope we see you back coaching here soon enough.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it as well, and appreciate you taking the time, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jason.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, folks. Thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.